There wasn't a single seat left at the table. The room was decorated with balloons, personalized cupcakes, and champagne flutes tinted pink. I stood quietly in the corner, holding the diaper cake I'd been asked to bring, the one I paid for myself. My sister, Lila, laughed softly, glowing under the delicate string of fairy lights. My mother tapped her glass to get everyone's attention. And then it happened. She lifted her drink, smiling, and said, "To our princess and her new home." The room erupted in applause. I didn't join in. Because that new home they were celebrating? It was my apartment, the one I had renovated, furnished, and lived in. My father stood up, producing a glossy folder like he was about to perform a magic trick. Inside was a deed, signed, stamped, and transferred. My hands went cold. My throat tightened. I glanced around. No one else looked confused. Just me. No one said, "Wait, doesn't that belong to her?" They all smiled like it was just another sweet surprise, not a betrayal. Lila beamed. "I can't believe you guys did this for me." And my mom gave a wink. "Your sister's doing well. She can afford to share." Share. I opened my mouth to speak, but closed it again. There are moments when anger burns so intensely, it silences you. When humiliation coils around your spine and squeezes until all you can do is breathe through the ache. So, I smiled. I gently placed the diaper cake on the table and walked out. No scene. No slammed door. Just silence. But in that silence, I started counting. Not minutes. Not hours. Not even heartbeats. I counted appliances. Because if they thought they could wrap up my life in ribbons and call it a gift, they clearly forgot who rewired the outlets, who mounted the shelves, who installed every ceiling fan. By 6 a.m. the next morning, everything was gone. Fridge. Oven. Faucets. Door handles. Even the light switch covers. At 6:41 a.m., Lila texted, "Is this a joke?" I replied, "Not yet." They thought I'd disappear quietly. But I was just getting started. Because they didn't just take an apartment, they took from a woman who builds her own kingdom and doesn't ask for permission to tear it down. By the time I'm done, they'll wish they never popped that champagne. At 7:15 a.m., the locksmith arrived. By 7:30, the front door had a brand new handle, coded, sealed, and legally mine again. Inside, the place looked hollow. A shell. I took everything. The couch. The bar stools. Even the toilet paper holder from the guest bathroom. All of it. Bought by me. Installed by me. They didn't inherit a home. They inherited an empty floor plan. By 9 a.m., my phone was flooded with messages. First, from my father, "This is extreme. Be reasonable." Then my mother, "We didn't think you'd mind. It's family." Then Lila again, "You're ruining my baby shower week." I didn't respond. They didn't deserve explanations. They deserved consequences. Because while they were busy playing house with my life, I had been quietly building something far more solid, something they couldn't touch. Documentation. Bank statements. Receipts. Rental history. Every single detail in my name. The transfer of ownership. Pressured. Manipulated. Documented. Time-stamped. And now tucked into a digital folder labeled Emergency Fire. By noon, my parents showed up at the apartment, or what was left of it. My mother gasped the moment she walked in. "Where is everything?" she shouted. I tilted my head. "You mean, my things?" My dad's voice turned stern. "We can work this out. Just calm down." That's when I laughed. Calm. I was calm. Glacier calm. And glaciers move slowly, but when they do, they crush everything in their path. "You forged a gift," I said as I walked away. "Now you're getting the return policy." They followed me outside, still trying to reason, still talking. But I was already in the truck, halfway down the street, their voices fading behind me. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a transfer of power. And I was just beginning, turning off the lights one switch at a time. Because here's the thing. When you steal from a builder, you forget they know exactly how to take it apart. By Monday, I was 3 steps ahead. I filed a formal dispute on the deed, fraudulent signature, false claims. My friend Jordan, a lawyer, looked over the paperwork and said, "Not just unethical, this is sloppy." Sloppy enough to miss the middle initial on the documents. Sloppy enough to backdate the paperwork, unaware that I had GPS and digital receipts showing I was out of state the day they claimed I signed it. By Tuesday, a temporary injunction was in place. The deed was frozen. The apartment, now in legal limbo, right along with their lies. That evening, I sent a short, calm message in the family group chat. "If you're staying in the apartment after Thursday, you'll be trespassing." Lila replied within seconds. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "I'm pregnant." I stared at the message. Blank. Suddenly, pregnancy was her shield. It wasn't a concern when she stood under those fairy lights, sipping sparkling cider in my kitchen. It wasn't a concern when she smiled while receiving stolen property like it was a birthday gift. At midnight, I sent her a private message. "You know that hallway mirror? You never noticed the security camera above it, did you?" The typing bubbles appeared. Then disappeared. Then again, stopped. Because she finally realized, the woman they used to call too serious had been documenting everything. Every visit. Every conversation. Even the exact moment my father handed over the deed and said, "She won't fight back. She owes us." Crystal clear on the footage. Now also crystal clear in court. By Wednesday morning, my phone rang. Not for an apology, but to beg. "Please," my mother whispered. "This could ruin us. We could lose our seat on the church board, the neighborhood committee." Ah, so that's what mattered. Not the betrayal. Not the theft. Just their image. I didn't respond. No reply. No mercy. Because I wasn't after revenge. I was after truth. And when truth shows up, it doesn't need to shout. It just points and watches everything fall apart. Thursday morning, the movers arrived. But not for me. For them. 3 uniformed workers entered the apartment at 9 a.m., court-approved eviction notice in hand. Lila cried. My mother swore. My father paced like he still had control. He didn't. Every lie they told? Dust now. Every smug moment from that baby shower? Gone. Lila screamed, "You can't do this. I'm pregnant." I met her eyes. Steady. "You weren't pregnant when you forged my signature." They didn't deny it. Not anymore. Just pleaded. I stood in the hallway, arms folded, watching as box after box was sealed. Clothes, trinkets, a half-assembled crib. My dad leaned in like he wanted to say something. Maybe to reason. I raised a hand. "Don't." He paused. "We raised you." I nodded. "Exactly. You raised me to stay quiet when I was hurt. To disappear when I wasn't wanted." I leaned in, voice low. "You just never expected I'd learn how to weaponize that silence." They were given 90 minutes to leave. I stood outside. Neighbors peeked through their blinds, curiosity written on their faces. But this wasn't a scene, it was justice. At 10:57 a.m., Lila passed by, carrying only a diaper bag. Nothing else. Her voice broke. "I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. Because this wasn't about happiness. This was about finally being heard, without ever raising my voice. By 11 a.m., the locks were changed again. Not by me, by court order. I stood at the doorway, staring into what used to be a home I built with care, never knowing the people I loved most would be the ones to tear it down. But there was no shame now. Just clarity. They took my home, so I took their illusion. And when the world saw who they really were, not victims, not a loving family, but thieves in coordinated outfits, that's when I knew. They hadn't lost a home. They just finally lost access to me. That line echoed again. I hope you're happy. Like that was ever the point. As if they hadn't stood in a room full of cupcakes and cameras, celebrating the theft of my life like it was some kind of party. Well, since they brought up hope. I hoped the motel pillows were flat. I hoped the mini fridge made noise all night. I hoped every time my sister opened an empty kitchen drawer, she remembered exactly who used to keep it full, without ever being asked. By Friday, the group chat was silent. No baby updates. No cheerful memes from Mom. Just nothing. Then Saturday morning, a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole. It was my mother, holding a grocery bag. Something told me it wasn't groceries. I opened the door halfway. She didn't meet my eyes. I just want to talk, my mother said quietly. Not about the apartment, about you. She sat gently on the edge of the couch, her fingers trailing along the fabric like she was hoping it might somehow forgive her. She told me she missed me, that things had spiraled, that Lila didn't know any better, that it was my father's idea, that she just went along with it. I'm not asking to move back in, she whispered. I'm asking for a second chance. I sat across from her, calm, measured. You know what second chances require, I said. Respect for the first one. She flinched. I stood and motioned for her to follow. I led her to the utility closet and opened the door. Inside, stacked neatly and sealed in folders, were every receipt, every document, every proof of ownership tied to that apartment. This, I said, is what trust costs. And I paid in full. You tried to bankrupt it. Her eyes welled with tears. But I didn't feel sympathy. Only release. She left before finishing the tea she never deserved. And I sat for a long time afterward, letting the quiet settle over me like a warm blanket. Because for once, I wasn't the one left empty. I was whole. And now they were the ones standing outside locked doors, asking for a version of me that no longer existed. By Monday, the whispers began, from church friends, distant cousins, and those ever-faithful aunts, with too much perfume and no loyalty. They didn't know the full story. But they'd heard enough to start choosing sides. She's tearing the family apart, all over an apartment? Her sister's pregnant, for heaven's sake. I didn't respond. I'd spent my whole life beneath a roof where guilt was mistaken for love and silence was treated like duty. But not anymore. Instead, I compiled every document, every timestamp, every email. I labeled the file. For anyone who thinks I'm the villain. Then I sent it to the family group chat. No caption. No commentary. Just truth. Receipts showing payments. Emails with forged consent. Screenshots of Lila bragging to her friend. We're finally getting her place. She'll understand. She hadn't meant to send that to me. But she hit the wrong thread. And after that, the silence became theirs, not mine. By Wednesday, I got a message from Uncle Dave. I'm sorry. I didn't know. If you ever need anything, you let me know. It's funny how fast people apologize when the narrative no longer comes from manipulators in coordinated Sunday outfits. That night, I returned to the apartment. I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by clean air and unpacked boxes. I'd already decided I wasn't going to keep it. Too much history soaked into those walls. But before I let it go, I walked through each room. Not to mourn, but to document. because I wanted to remember what it looks like to reclaim something without ever having to raise your voice, to walk through fire without burning yourself down in the process. They called me cold, said I overreacted, but they forgot I was always the quiet one, the fixer, the backbone, until I stopped letting broken people lean on me like I owed them a place to fall. And when I finally stood on my own, I didn't yell. I raised the rent on their comfort. Thursday, 6:41 p.m. Another text from Lila. Be honest. Did you hire someone to take the washer and dryer? I smiled. She still didn't get it. I didn't hire anyone. I simply reclaimed what I paid for. No warning. No guilt. No second guessing. That night, I scheduled one final delivery. Not to the apartment. To their temporary address, the motel, according to a cousin who couldn't keep secrets. Friday, 8 a.m., a truck pulled into the lot. Two uniformed men wheeled out a large, plastic-wrapped package. No return label. No sender info. Inside, a full-length mirror. Taped to it, a copy of the baby shower group photo. Everyone grinning. Me off to the side, holding the diaper cake. And at the bottom of the mirror, written in silver marker, "Look who stole the wrong woman." Lila called me within minutes. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, rambling, crying, angry. Then texted, "Are you seriously doing all this over a deed?" And that's when I realized she still didn't understand. This wasn't about property. This was about identity. Because when you're always the one who gives, they forget you were never meant to be stepped on. They forget who kept the lights on, who stayed quiet for peace, not weakness. And that peace, it had an expiration date. Mine ran out the moment they toasted new beginnings over champagne poured across my name. So, I did the one thing they never saw coming. I walked away. Not with fire. Not with fury. Just with every ounce of power I'd ever handed them, quietly pulled back into my own hands. And as their drama spread like wildfire through the family, I said nothing. Because silence, when earned, isn't empty. It's precise. It's calm. And it's devastating. Just like me. The apartment sold in 2 days. Full asking price. No negotiations. Clean title. Cash offer. The new owner walked through on a bright, clear afternoon. They smiled and said, "It feels peaceful here." I nodded. Because that's what I had built. Not just walls and a roof. But peace. I didn't need the apartment anymore. I needed closure. So, I let it go. With the money, I bought something smaller. Simpler. Quiet. No shared walls. No ghosts in the floorboards. Just sunlight, bookshelves, and locks with only my fingerprints. Weeks passed. I started sleeping again. Not restless, half-aware sleep. Real sleep. The kind where you're not rewriting conversations in your mind, trying to fix things that already broke you. One afternoon, I got a plain envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a crumpled baby shower photo. My face was circled in red ink. Below it, 2 words. You won. I laughed. Because even now, she still didn't understand. This wasn't about winning. It was about ending the cycle. For the first time in my life, I chose me. I chose boundaries without guilt. Dignity over forced forgiveness. Silence, not as punishment, but as a locked door they no longer get to enter. I didn't attend the baby's birth, but I sent one gift, a hardcover children's book. The little engine that said no. Inside, I wrote, "May she grow up knowing that saying no isn't cruel. It's power. And no one has the right to take her voice away." No signature. Just a quiet echo of everything I fought to reclaim. A week later, I walked past my old building one last time. New curtains in the window. Fresh paint on the door. A stranger's life beginning where mine had ended. And I smiled. Not because it was easy, but because I had finally learned. You don't have to burn bridges to disappear. You just have to stop showing up. And let the silence remind them. You were the architect all along,